everybody. This is Joshua Hatton with One Nation Under Whiskey, extra edition. I've got the lovely Jessica Rabbit Guillermo Lomas with me on this extra edition, and you're at the Ardgowan Distillery. Look at that, calling in.
Yeah, can you not hear the seagulls? Are just out of shot. They're trying to eat my chips that I've got under the microphone that I'm recording.
I hope you've got like a canopy over you or some sort of an umbrella to protect you from the droppings.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the other thing that you can't see is that I'm wearing full body rub down of 1,000% DEET because the midgies down here are savage.
They are terrible. I was just 2 weeks ago on Isla, spent 3 days, and in someone's description of the midgies, I think was spot on, that they are somehow a cross between mosquitoes and piranha.
Yes, that's how we breed them, especially on Isla. They are some of the most savage. I came to an event down here during the fesh, and the air was black. You could literally push them out of the way. Oh.
Yeah. For American listeners, could you describe what a midgie might be?
A very small flying thing, smaller than a mosquito, smaller than a horsefly, but they will shred you in a way that you didn't know was possible for little tiny things. I regularly have people come in from all sorts of bits of the world, and they say, oh, well, we have mosquitoes where we're from, we're fine. And then they leave being like, okay, you're right, they're terrible. I don't know what it is. They are, maybe somebody sciencey could write into the podcast and tell me specifically why on the west coast of Scotland, our midgies are some of the most devastating little flying, creepy things you could find. I don't know why they're so like that.
People here in the States would say, oh, we've got those. We call them no-see-ums. And no, I mean, from a size comparison, yes, a no-see-um, which is a great name, right? No-see-ums, like the perfect little name for an insect.
Ninja flies.
Because they're the same. I like that, ninja fly. So they're like the same size, but like a midgie is a no-see-um that happens to be possessed by the devil and has vampire teeth. Yeah. And they just will suck you dry and just rip your flesh.
And they love me. We can be somewhere where you won't see any of them, and everyone's like, oh, it's a fine day, and I will come home with arms that look like cheese graters because they just cannot. That I'm the one, in every group of friends, there's always one person that you're like, well, put that person there because they'll get eaten. I am that person. And I've tried everything. Avon Skin So Soft. I've tried being next to people with cigars. I've tried citronella. I've tried DEET. I've tried campfires. The only thing that sort of works for me is a thing that we have in Scotland called Smidge, which is a spray that actual Scottish scientists have created specifically to do with midgies, hence the Ardgowan midgie release. That's the only closest thing that I have. And this year, a friend gave me a Swedish spray that's kind of like a Swedish smidge. That was pretty good. But there's, very little that helps me.
It's still not perfect though, right?
Nah. Yeah. The way for me to not get eaten is to not go outdoors.
There you go. The only solution. But there you are at Bunnahabhain Distillery.
They come indoors and they do it Bunnahabhain. You go in the warehouse and they follow you in. So there is no solution. I just have to drink more whiskey.
Well, speaking of whiskey, we have some whiskey news, sort of not really whiskey news, but more of a recap of your time in Scotland. I'll touch a bit of my time on Scotland, but really you've got a lot to share because you spent a good deal of time in Speyside during the month of May, Speyside festival and school. Yeah. And you've got a lot to share. So I want to give you the floor here.
Oh, okay. So I thought, since it's summer, at first you and I were like, there's not a lot of whiskey news happening. And then we started talking about it and there's loads of whiskey news.
Oh, that's true. There is loads of whiskey news. So let's do that.
I thought we could do like a bit of new into old, and halfway through the new we'll tie in with some of my stuff in Speyside if my brain has processed this all in the right order.
Sorry, that's perfect. I had midgies on the mind. They were eating my brain,
It's fair
and I
enough.
think that's how we should do it. You've done right. So let's do that.
Okay. So I think if we started with the new, the
Yeah.
day of recording of the podcast, we've made it into July, which is frightening. Not sure how that's happened because in my head it's still very much February. So the new bit of the news, I guess, would be there's a new distillery who have just opened their doors and welcomed lots of public the other week on the 20th. This might not be a name that's very familiar to lots of podcast listeners, so fire up your Google machines and check out the Ardgowan Distillery. That's they're in a place called Inverkip on the Inverclyde. And that's a funny bit of Scottish coastline that I've never really been to an awful lot. It's kind of on the way to our dear beloved leader Jason's stomping ground, but not quite as far on as that. If you want to look on a
Okay.
Google map, it's still the mainland, but kind of opposite a place called Dunoon, which, as I'm telling you this, if you don't live in Scotland, that probably also doesn't mean an awful lot to you either. But it's on the Inverclyde coast. So it's a kind of, it's tucked in behind the bit of peninsula that will be more familiar to people for like Campbelltown, that bit of Scotland coming down. So Ardgowan Distillery is a distillery that's been in the planning, I think, for about 8 years. I certainly have been hearing about it for a very long time. And I honestly wasn't sure it was ever going to come to anything. I'd heard so much. I thought the day when they threw open their doors would never come. But the 20th of June, they did, and they launched their new distillery, which, as you and I were discussing, you definitely should go check out the pictures. It's a beautiful
Wild.
building. It
Yeah,
looks
it's
like
gorgeous.
a Viking longhouse. It's got like
Yeah.
lovely kind of pointy roof. Pointy roof for a selling point of a distillery. Very good, Jess. But it looks very impressive. Once you've seen the pictures, dear podcast listeners, you will understand what I mean.
Yeah, it's
And they
beautiful.
are,
Very modern looking.
yeah, modern, but at the same time, I feel like this is going to age really well.
Yeah,
Sometimes I talk
yeah.
about like, what do I think? We have lots of, especially in Scotland, lots of beautiful, very old buildings. What are we building today that I think will look impressive in 200 years' time? I think this has the go, could be a good candidate for that. They have two kind of like main things that I think was worth bringing to the attention of the podcast listeners. One was that they are very heavily about sustainability, and the other is they've got a slightly weird cask element to their business. So very sustainable there, as they are obviously a modern distillery. They've planned it for kind of maximum efficiency, but with half an eye on this net zero, carbon neutral type setup, which we have talked about on the podcast before about efficiencies and modernizing. And they have got quite a cool system inside. They're not the only distillery that do this. It's called TVR, which is thermal. Ooh, what is that? Thermal vapor
Yeah.
recompression. So that's a little bit. It's a little boxing you might see a bit of in a still house. And I saw a lot of this in the whiskey school, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. So there's an MVR and there's a TVR. And if you are of a certain age from the UK, TVR is a little tiny sports car.
Okay.
It's not a sports car. And it's all to do with how do we capture energy that we have put into the process and how can we keep hold of it and use it somewhere else. So TVR, what it's doing is it's taking the heat, and especially about the steam that we are producing in production and then using in other bits of production in the distillery. It's quite technical, but it is quite cool. It can help really cut down on the amount of energy that a distillery needs to use, or like new energy created in production. It's a little bit nerdy. It made a lot more sense to me when I was in a still house following somebody pointing as they explained which bit of the distillery it was all going to. So I look forward to the poor tour guides of the future having to add this little element into a still house, because I'm sure lots of the podcast listeners are used to how double distillation and sometimes triple distillation works, and that kind of tracing your finger and following it around. Adding these TVR and MVR systems into the distillery adds like another kind of closed loop bit. But very cool. They also are looking to create biomethane by reusing some of the products. So they're really trying to kind of become very low energy consuming and reusing it as much as they can. So if you're interested in how modern distilleries are looking at recouping some of this energy and recycling it, it's definitely worth looking at. They reckon that when they're up and running, They will be using something like 4 kilowatt hours per litre of alcohol, is what I've written here, which is a figure I've never had quoted to me at a distillery, but I expect as
Yeah.
we increasingly look at energy consumption stuff, I think that may come up.
Yeah.
But they claim that
Yeah.
4
Makes
kilowatt hour
sense.
per litre of alcohol is half of what the industry has as their standard. So next time you're in a distillery, write it down, go and ask them if they know what their energy consumption per kilowatt hour of litre versus litre of alcohol is.
Oh my
See whether or
gosh.
not
Yeah. Put
anybody's put that in their tour guides.
a
That will
new, a
definitely
new
get you
item on your
ejected from a
bingo card,
distillery
right?
quickly. Like, go, leave. So yeah, that's a kind of like quite nerdy energy bit. And then perhaps nerdy in a different area is that Ardgowan have got this, their trademark thing about the casks is they're calling infinity casks. So lots of distilleries, as you know, and by where I'm sat, they talk a lot about their casks in their process and how it adds character and flavor. Some people may also quote this nonsense figure of 70% of the whiskey character comes from the casks. I don't know where that came from, but I would like that to be removed from the industry. That's my side rant about that. So these infinity casks, they have employed a guy whose name is Stuart McPherson, and he was with Edrington
Yeah.
and famously Macallan for
Yeah.
something crazy like 40 years.
Yeah.
And he is their master of wood. And so he's been tasked with working together with Miguel Martin, who, of course, you and I know because we have purchased casks from them. Lots of other bits of the industry buy casks from the Martin brothers. They have created these, and they are massive. Again, go and look these up. Massive casks. So lots of us have been to distilleries where we talk about small casks because it's a more intense interaction with the wood, quicker maturation, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
These guys have run at 100 miles an hour in the opposite direction. So
Yeah.
legally, the biggest cask we can use in whiskey, the size is 700 litres by those SWA regulations. I haven't managed to find anywhere in any of the press releases an exact litre size, but it's a shade under 700 is what I've seen. So they're on the right side of being able to call all of this effort whiskey, but it's in these huge casks. And apparently their aim is they're looking deliberately for 700. They're looking deliberately for 18-year maturation. So they're looking for slow interaction with the wood, long time. They've been very fussy apparently about the creation of these casks. They have a lot of specific rules. So they are seasoned sherry seasoned woods, and apparently they've been seasoned for a minimum of 3 years. So a long time being seasoned for the industry. And yeah, that's what they're going to use. They've been seasoned with a mixture of Oloroso and PX organic sherries. So I thought this was interesting because they've been a long time in coming to having an open day. And in fact, some of my friends, including Padcast listener Flo, were there for the open day. They've been a long time coming to that point. And then I feel like there's no mention anywhere about the speed at which they're going to bring whiskey to the market either. And presumably, if they're deliberately aiming for big casks and slow interaction, then we're not looking at any liquid on the market either anytime soon.
Right. So they've got these big, almost 700-liter casks, which sounds like my favorite term for a cask, which is a gorda, which is the Spanish word for fat, which I love. I think it's such a great term. And 18 years old, that's the target, which makes me think they're looking for a heavy sulfury spirit, much like Mortlach would likely do. So they want that to sort of age out. And I'm looking at their website, predominantly sherry, so they want this sort of like heavier Mortlachy style. But looking at their website, they have a 10-year-old age-stated whiskey. So they're doing some independent bottlings right now to make some money along the way while they wait for the whiskey to age 18 years,
For
right?
potentially up to 18 years. Yeah, they have a range that's called Clyde Built.
Okay.
There's a range of different products within that. But they also, interestingly, on the kind of, we're so used to the announcements of people and influence, and you get quite used to hearing like the same like spec for distilleries. So these guys have had their stills. Interesting, they're made by Macmillan in Preston Pans in Edinburgh, which is a name I've not really seen a lot of in terms of distilleries. They have 6 washbacks and a 5-ton mash tun. So apparently they're starting with 1 pair of stills. I think it's like a 12,000 wash and a 9,000 spirit. And then they're going to wait a little bit. Then they're going to double. They'll put another pair of stills in.
Okay.
So fairly chunky. And I think they were saying they could do something like, oh, maybe I've made this number up. They were saying they could do up to like 2 million litres of, no, 1 million. Yeah, 1 million litres a year is their kind of maximum capacity. But also in terms of like names and things to check off, apart from Master of Wood, Stuart McPherson, they've also got Laura Davis, who's a name that you may know from Penderyn. She is the distillery manager.
And that's the name that I was going to bring up, which I find so interesting. Brilliant distiller. But we're going from, oh, look at that little thumbs up for our viewers. For our viewers out there, I had a thumbs up, and now I've got fireworks.
And that Josh has been exploded.
This episode dropped July 2nd, just 2 days before 4th of July, which is great. So the viewers can see all sorts of special effects going on the screen. But so you've got Laura Davies, who came from Penderyn, is now at Ardgowan, which does sound like a Lord of the Rings reference. Anyway, but they're making what seems like it's going to be this heavy style, sherry-driven style of whiskey. But Penderyn was always that very light, super light, fruity style of whiskey. So it seems like, quite a
departure from her normal.
Quite a departure, yeah.
Works.
Yeah, so it'll be really interesting what she's bringing to that. Is she going to try to keep a lighter touch to it, or is she really going to go in with that heavier style? It's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, I thought it all sounds quite fun. Like I say, I've been hearing about these guys in planning for such a long time that I just had sort of thought it was a very, very slow burning project. So it's very cool that they had a big open day on the 20th. And then they're planning to apparently have a visitor centre up and running later in the year. So maybe when that's that, I will take a little trip down the Inverclyde and I'll go and check out Ardgowan Distillery. So
yeah, beautiful. Yeah,
that's my new. And I briefly mentioned in the middle of that about Speyside Whisky School, which I'll give you like a little 5-minute blitz on if you would like. That was in May.
Yes.
Time. I don't know where time goes.
May was like, it's July already. How was May that long ago?
Weird, isn't it? Time's a funny thing. Yes, I went and did that. And if if you met me at any other point, that started the same weekend as Limburg Whisky Festival, which is why I was not in Limburg, because I was in Speyside doing whiskey things instead. Some of which involved wandering around with high-vis and a hard hat on, which was quite good fun. So I had been looking to do like a course or something. It was maybe a bit more practical rather than classroom-led. And somebody recommended me the Whisky School in Speyside. And I thought that seemed like a great idea. A bit like Campbelltown, they have a bit of a waiting list. So just sign yourself up and then wait till you get an email. That was fun. There was a bunch of people from all over the world. And we did some kind of like classroom-based learning with people that had been in the industry for pretty impressive lengths of time, but all sides of the industry. So not just production, but people that had worked in maltings, scientists, chemists. There was bits of chemistry and stuff I've not thought about since I was at school, like thinking about breaking down the molecules of glucose was a little give your head a wobble and think about that instead of talking about whiskey flavors. It's headed up by Anne Miller, who some people may know as the Dram Queen. She is probably one of the OGs of the Whiskey Ambassador Wales. Anne's got an absolute wealth of knowledge, so it's quite fun hearing stories from her. We did field trips. We also got let loose in Forsyth's yard, not long after you and I had been there. Where I just sort of wandered around looking at stuff, pointing at things, being like, what's that? Which was great. Really enjoyed that.
I'm so
went
jealous.
to Crisp's Maltings up at Port Gordon and I had a little walk around there. It was really interesting, but it's really funny to visit sites that are definitely not built for like visitor consumption. It's extremely, and the guys will tell you, I don't think I'm being rude, it's extremely ugly inside. It's a working site. It's the bit where they do the peating of the Whiskeys, if you've seen my Instagram, sort of look like a really giant barbecue that they pump a load of smoke into the next building over the grains. But just amazing to see that on such a big scale. If you've been to
Mm.
distilleries like Kilhoman or Bowmore, or if you've been lucky enough to get into Balvenie, where they show you very manual, very labor intensive, old fashioned production of creating malt. Crisps
Mm.
is like a whole other end. Like this is a straight up commercial maltsters who are producing a variety of styles on massive scales. So
Okay.
while the process looks a little bit familiar, the scale of it is really quite something to watch. These two silos of grain moving around. So that was a ton of fun. That was kind of one of the reasons I also wanted to sign up
Yeah.
was to get access into these places that even though you and I are in the industry, it's quite difficult even then to get in. You have to know a guy and right place, right time type stuff. So that was really
Mm.
cool. And then yeah, like lots of in-depth knowledge. So I really recommend it. It's based in Elgin. We stayed at the Lake Murray Hotel and the course was taught there. And then a couple of little field trips out. We had a really nice finishing dinner at the Downs Hotel in Avalon, which was
Oh
lovely.
yeah. Yep.
One of the guys on the course even played his bagpipes for us, which was great. Piped in the dinner.
Very
Yeah.
nice.
So 10 out of 10 would recommend. There's a whole wealth of course material that you get to take away with you. And then you can take notes and stuff during the classes. But yeah, really, really interesting. And not just your obvious meet a distiller, talk to somebody with a tour guide. We were talking to Diane Stewart, I think her surname is. She's one of the blenders for Edrington. Talked to some guys from Dewars. So it's like a whole different side of the industry. And then of
Mm.
course a few distillery visits too. We went to Altmore. That was really cool. Because again, Altmore's not usually a distillery you can get into.
Yeah,
And all of
exactly.
this is kind of like it's at the start of the Spirit of Speyside Festival. So if you wanted to come and do that, you can kind of bolt on this for the first couple of days and
Wow.
then stay in
Wow.
Speyside and do the rest of the
Yeah.
festival. So yeah, if people want to ask me more questions, they know where to find me because we're obviously doing a tight 35-ish minute for this podcast. So if you have questions, I'm happy to share pictures and give you my recommendation, but I thoroughly enjoyed myself. They are not paying me to say nice words. I thought it was a great thing to do. So
I got a quick
that's that.
question about crisps. For
Yeah.
their malting, was it a series of malting floors? Did they do like a Saladin tub type malting?
They do have a Saladin box. That room was extremely hot.
Saladin box.
They
Yeah.
have got that style. They also have like big. Do they have drums? No, I'm saying that. I also went to Speyburn recently where we got to look at their drum maltings. So my maltings things
Okay.
are creeping together in my head. But
Yeah.
yeah, they showed us a Saladin box thing, which is quite unusual.
Yeah.
And very hot, a very hot, sweaty room that was to be in and watch
Mm-hmm.
that. But quite
Mm-hmm.
cool. Quite cool to watch the process. Like I say, just on a scale like that. It's really
Yeah.
unusual
Monstrous.
because
Yeah. Huge.
at best you usually just get like slideshow pictures. We
Yeah.
got to walk around some of the like the silos where they're soaking it. Like even the scale of that is monstrous.
And then from a just for the listeners and viewers, sorry. For those that don't know, like a Saladin box is, cause sort of looks like an Olympic sized swimming pool that they would put, barley in and they would malt the barley in that. And they would have this line arm that would have augers in it. And
Yeah.
it would just slowly go back and forth, turning
Yeah.
the barley.
I actually
So
think a better description of that is like a bowling alley.
Oh,
'Cause it
okay.
had,
So
like,
it
these
was more
lanes.
narrow.
Yeah, it had like a series
Oh,
of lanes. So
interesting.
the swimming pool analogy is not, you're not wrong, but it had lanes within it because they were doing batches. So they had this kind of like
So,
going up and down. It did in my head look like a bowling alley.
for the one that I saw was different. That's why I used my analogy. I was at the one at when Tamdu had their Saladin boxes. They had a
Yeah.
series of them because Tamdu was doing all of the malting for all of the Edrington distilleries years ago. They're now demolished, but their Saladin boxes were the size of Olympic swimming pools. And so their setup was different. So theirs was more like lanes. Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Cool though. I wonder if I can find pictures of it. I will send you them and we can put them in the Facebook group.
There we go. Okay. All right. One last question for you.
Sure.
So that was the malting. for the peating, right? Most people, when they think of peating, they imagine, this kiln where sitting atop the kiln is a steel grate. You put the barley atop on that grate, and beneath that is a fire. You burn the peat. The smoke goes up. It dries the barley, and the smoke goes into the barley, and you get smoky barley, right? What does the peating of that barley look like at crisps?
Absolutely nothing like that. It's very,
Okay. Yeah.
that's completely removed from what we're used to seeing at the distilleries. This looks like, honestly, it looks like a giant funny barbecue burger. If you want to think of it as being the source of the smoke and where they're peating it is outside the building. It's not even inside where the grain is laid out. That's like, it comes through in pipes and then goes up into it. But the actual thing is on the outside. And I definitely will share a picture of this because it's so weird. I took a picture of it. There's a whole bunch of us stood outside it with like high vis. And the site manager was pointing and showing us how that works, how they shovel in the like peat at the bottom. It generates the smoke and the heat. And then that goes through into where the barley is, which is next to it. So nothing like how it looks at the distilleries.
Jess, do you have a picture of the actual peating process that you could share?
Ooh, by the power of the magic and Zoom, if it wants to cooperate with me, which it might not do. Let's see.
By the power of Grayskull?
Can we see this?
Oh,
can we make this bigger?
Yes. Yeah, so, bigify it. Oh, look at that.
We can see here, the site manager's like explaining, it's like this funny peat box. It's
I don't
really
like what his
funny.
arm is doing, if I'm being honest with you.
Yeah, bad timing for the photo, sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they kind of light the fire at the bottom here and load it up. And then the smoke goes through the back of this. You can just see, I don't know if you can see my cursor as I'm talking, but you can just see this pipe coming out the back here, going through into this building behind us.
Yeah.
And this is the only site that Crisp do peated malt at. So there's a Crisp site down here to nearly at me in Alloway in Glasgow. Ish. Well, Allow's not quite Glasgow, but this side of the world rather than Speyside, where there is also a big Crisps malting, but they don't peat it. It's only up here at Port Gordon that they do that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
And if it lets me go back to another picture here.
Yeah. I for our listeners, I apologize that you can't see this, but this gives you incentive to start watching our extra videos on YouTube. And B, we will be, so long as Jess doesn't mind, sharing these pictures with me. Yeah, we'll post these up on Facebook and on Instagram.
That's why I took them. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
So there you go. For when you eventually see this picture, or you could probably Google it. It's a very funny box, but it is outside and separate to the malt. Whereas if you go to a distillery and they talk about malting, it tends to be within the context of it all happening pretty much in the same building or within very close proximity of it. So yeah, not quite, again, a great example of not quite what you would expect to see at a distillery, but yeah, a different bit of the
it's not sexy, right? You go to a distillery
nothing on this site is sexy
peating,
whatsoever. Yeah, nothing is sexy here at all. But it's very cool, I think. Or hot, I guess.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Cool.
So that was Spirit of Speyside. And then I guess because we're keeping to a very regimented, strict type 30.
Yeah.
Ish. I thought I could transition from the new to the old, but it's not older. Because Ardgowan were opening their doors on the 20th of June, but on the 29th of June, Arran Distillers were celebrating their 30th anniversary. So it's kind of funny to transition between one to the other. I like to think of Arran as kind of like the new wave of distilleries that kicked it all off in 95. Actually, Ardgowan is the first distillery to be built down there since the bombing in 1941, I think. The last distillery down there was in the Blitz.
Oh, wow.
So there hasn't been a distillery down there for 100 years. So, Arran opened... or Arran Distillers opened the Lochranza Distillery in 1995. And if you've ever been in a tasting with me, you will have heard me say that Arran and I share a birthday. The distillery at Lochranza is the best 6th birthday present I never got. So that'll tell you how old I turned on Sunday as well. It was very nice of the distillery to throw a party just for me. They didn't. But I have to give kudos to my friend Fred, who is the ambassador for Lag Distillery, was doing a tasting that I was in, and we all had lag cupcakes, and Fred arranged for one with my name on it. So extra points to Fred for that. Thank you very much. And to the lovely Mariella, who I'm sure lots of the podcast listeners will have met at Whiskey Things, who she and her husband Michael muled over tantrum donuts with my name on it, which
Ooh.
No better way to show a dram. I obviously brought a bottle of our Lochranza 9-year-old from the beginning of the year that I'd squirreled away to drink with some people at the distillery. So
there you go.
I'll put those pictures up too for you to see. But yeah, they had a special toast. So the Saturday was just like lots of festival events. It was lovely. There was the White Stag dinner on the Friday night, which is their community society that I didn't get tickets for, but apparently was amazing. There was a lot of sore-headed looking people on Saturday morning. And then on Sunday, it was very chilled out. There was a barbecue and some more drams. And then at 2-ish, 2:30, there was a special dram we were all given when we arrived at the distillery on the day with a little sticker that was 229, because 229 is when the first start of the cut of the heart cut of the very first distillation was on the 29th of June 1995 at 229.
Oh, wow.
So Ewan started by doing a speech, which was lovely, and then they got Stuart to explain the dram. And it was a put together, never to be released, very special for people on the day, whiskey to try, and it was from 3 casks. 2 bourbons from 2005 and 2015, and a 1995 sherry cask. All put together. It was absolutely divine.
Oh, wow.
It was a really nice thing to raise the glass and toast with everybody at Lochranza. And even the eagles came out. There are photographs. There were eagles at the distillery in the morning.
Brilliant.
So that was
that's
very
so
cool. Which I thought was a really nice touch. They also had a gentleman called Campbell, and I'm really sorry I didn't get his surname, who had written a really lovely poem that they read out. Everyone was a bit emotional at. And then they had a really nice musical element, because of course it's the malts and music as well at Arran. There was a student who's at the RSC here, so the Royal Scottish Conservatoire of Music. It's a music school. He's a postgrad, and they are doing they ran a competition in collaboration with Arran to celebrate the 30th anniversary of their traditional music department, and obviously tie it in with Lochranza's celebrations. They had a competition to write a tune it was based on a theme called Worth Reflecting On, which is Lochranza's current advertising campaign. And it was won by an accordion player who was called Duncan Ritchie, who introduced himself as being via Skye via Aberdeen, but lives in Glasgow, obviously, because it's the Conservatoire. And he was a really talented musician. He played his tune was the winning one. He's won the competition, and it was really lovely. So go check him out and find his music, I guess, online. I will definitely be looking for more of it, because he was really good. He wrote a fantastic tune. So there was that, and we had the toast, and it was all, a very lovely way to celebrate 30 years of Lochranza. I do know that they're going to do a 30-year whiskey later in the year.
That was going to be my question for you.
But I think there's only something tiny like 300 bottles of it, because there's so little of the 95 distillate. They ramped up production in 96, a bit like Kilchoman had the same problem. Their early production is really tiny. So I would imagine it'll be very sought after, but I know they're going to do a really concerted effort to put it into key whiskey bars around the world. So hopefully people will get to try a dram of it. But that was my first experience of Arran Whiskey Festival, and I really enjoyed it. Very chilled out.
It's amazing that they threw such a big party for you as well.
I know, so kind, right?
I tried giving you balloons. I don't know what gives you balloons. There you go. Happy birthday, Jess.
Oh, thanks. Oh, apparently you can't have 2 lots of balloons. You can only have one. Oh, my camera doesn't want to give me them. That's great audio content right there. So that's my kind of like bookending of rounding up of old and new distilleries. I thought would be really fun to just kind of touch on it. And obviously, I say old for Arran, but we all know Arran's not an old distillery. It's just within the context of celebrating. It's kind of crazy that they're 30 years old already.
It's wild. It's wild that they're 30 years old, and you've just referred to them as sort of, the new distillery, right? The new front. And you're right, they're not really new. And if you go to a bar and you order a 30-year-old whiskey, you could taste that that has age to it, right? That
Mhm.
is an old whiskey. Uh, it's yeah, that is no longer new, right? You turn on the radio and a song from the 90s is now classic rock, or whatever, right? It's an oldie. It's officially an oldie. So here we are. That's the world we live
Yeah.
in, Jess.
Shh, it's very new, very new. But you were also in Scotland, so maybe you should tell us in the remaining 2.3 seconds we have of our tight 30 recording about your
Was.
Scotland trips, because you have seen more of Scotland in the last however long you were here for, 10 days, a week.
I was. I
You've seen more
was.
of
Yeah.
Scotland at speed than I've seen slowly over some time now.
At speed is the correct term. So at 11 days in Scotland, at 11 days in Scotland with 8 people, so there were 9 of us in a 9-person van. And I would argue a 9-person van does not fit 9 people.
Rumor has it. And I've
Rumor
seen the
has it.
photos.
9 people, a lot of suitcases, a lot of bottles purchased. So this is, and it was with wonderful friends, wonderful nation members. I'm going to do a Joshua Hatton list, but it's going to be a complete Joshua Hatton list. Are you ready for this?
This is broken
Ready?
with the format.
Okay, I'm going to do it.
Okay, I'm going to count them off.
Michael Nolan, Michael Bloom, Jonathan Markowitz, Richard Markowitz, Elhan Orhan, Dan Greisen, Joel Gratch, Bruce Caskell,
Mm-hmm.
and yours truly.
Oh, look at that. That may be the only time that we ever permit a complete Joshua Hatton list.
Yeah, a complete Joshua Hatton list. So this was really a circle tour of Scotland. So we flew into Edinburgh, and we took your advice, and we started with a dinner at Dishoom in Edinburgh. Oof, some of the
Strong choice.
best Indian food you can have. Just it filled the tummy and the soul, like just gorgeous.
It's so good, it's so filling. You wouldn't have needed to eat for the rest of the tour, I think.
But we did it anyway. So we started there, and the next day we flew from Edinburgh up to Kirkwall, and to visit Highland Park and Scapa, and we kicked off the evening visiting Stones of Stenness, and Michael Nolan brought a bottle of Single Cask Nation 18-year-old Stones of Stenness, 2 Stones of Stenness.
Lovely.
And we got to open that bottle there and really kick off the whole tour with that bottle there. So that was really nice. And we visited the Ring of Brodgar. You've been to Orkney. I imagine you've been there.
I have,
times,
but
yeah.
I did lots of, well, it was in my old job, so I didn't have a lot of time for sightseeing. And I'm going to be honest, most of the sightseeing we did was very childish sightseeing. So you're already naming more things than we ever went. I did go and see the Stones of Stenness, but mainly we went to try and visit Twat so we could take a picture of the road sign. And then I realized that there's a very good tourist shop in Kirkwall that sells all the merchandise with Twat written on it that you can ever want. Because also when we got to Twat, there was no road sign. Someone had nicked it.
I heard that it's common. People just go and steal the Twat road sign.
I think that's why they have please come and buy all the merch and we'll stop replacing the road sign. Apparently it's very common in Sweden. Germans come over and steal the road signs for mooses as well.
So we wanted to visit Twat, but we didn't get a chance to see Twat.
Well, I've saved you some heartbreak right there.
And then so we visited Highland Park. We went to Scapa. Scapa was one of the surprises on the tour. That was a very cool tour, and the tasting room was stunning. It was like,
I've seen pictures.
Yeah, it was like being inside of a ship, inside of a schooner, but it was upside down. So you look up and you're like inside of the bottom of a schooner. And yeah, it was really, really gorgeous setting. So anybody who gets up to Orkney to go to Highland Park, because most people go there to go to Highland Park, do not skip on Scapa. Their new line is gorgeous. Their whiskeys were from top to
Mm.
bottom excellent. Their new 16-year-old blows the old one out of the water, in my opinion. And that one I always held in very high regard. Um, yeah, I think
Them's
it was
fighting words. I
those
like
are
it.
have you had the new 16?
I've only had the new 10 because when it
Okay.
first came out, they didn't release the whole of the new line in the UK. It went in
Okay.
France and at the distillery.
Okay.
So I think now it is more widely available,
Yeah.
but I haven't tried it yet.
Okay. Yeah, the 16 is starting to come to the US. I saw the price is a bit high for me. But those are my words. I stick by them. But it's delicious. It's still delicious whiskey. Um, but yeah, well worth visiting and well worth tasting. So that was Orkney, and then we flew from Kirkwall to Inverness, and we drove up to Tain to visit Glenmorangie. And we met our good friend David Blackmore, who gave us a personal tour of Glenmorangie. And there's certain things I can say and certain things I can't say.
Look at you. We're all going to have to, I'm going to start a secret, like, not a crowdfunding, like a GoFundMe. We'll get like Joshua Unplugged. Will tell us all the dirt from his lads tour of Scotland.
I will say that we were allowed to go into the lighthouse, which those of you that don't know the lighthouse, it's a small experimental distillery, sort of in the parking lot or the separate car park, within the distillery
Car
grounds.
Park B.
Yeah, Car Park B, and it's a gorgeous experimental distillery. So we got to see that, which was stunning. I can't tell you what we did in there because I'm simply not allowed. Jess, I will tell you offline. Um, that was something else. And then we had a lovely tasting in the warehouse. Tasted, I mean, my love for Glenmorangie. Just tasted some amazing cask. Yeah, I hadn't been there in 14 years. 2011 and 2025. So it was really, really nice to be
It's
back.
your regular once a decade visit.
Yeah, yeah, I'll be there again in 2039. Hopefully you'll join me.
I'll meet you there in the car park.
And then we went off to Speyside and we visited 3 distilleries. We met with our good friend Ian Allen over at Glenmurray and got to taste in the tasting room that is on Hatton Hill, by the way. I like to point that out every opportunity I get. And Ian's always good to spend time with our good friend Ian. And then we visited Glenfarclas, and we were with Deborah Stewart, who took us around. She just gives a great tour, and we got to spend time with John Grant. I don't know if you've ever spent time with John Grant. He just happened to be walking around the distillery, and so we were just walking around, and he was down at the bottom of the stills, when where they used to be direct fired. And so we're hanging around with him and he just starts telling these old stories from back in the day when he was shoveling coal and just these great old stories. And Deborah's like, I have to get them going. I have to be doing X, Y, and Z. And he just keeps on telling us all of these stories. Nice. And it's like, some of the great stuff that happens when you're on tours. And
he has some very nice vintage cars. Did you get to see them?
No, I didn't.
Oh, I thought you were going to get some sort of, you were going to tell me that's how you exited the distillery, all of you, in one of his very lovely old cars. So you all just had to squash on back into the tiny, tiny van for not enough people.
So we squashed back into the van, and then we visited our good friend Ollie over at Tormore, who took us through the distillery, and and we had a lovely dinner with him. And then we went up to an old illicit still site. And in the rocks, we found an old bottle of Tormore just hidden in the rocks. It was amazing. I don't know
What are
what
the
it was
odds?
doing there.
What are the
What are
odds
the
of that?
odds?
Incredible. I
Yeah,
should come on Lads Says Lads
you
tours with you more
yeah,
often.
you should. You really should. All right. Let's speed it along here because I think we're getting close to our tight 35
I
here.
think you've got like 1.5 seconds left.
1.5 seconds. Okay. Then next morning, we woke up and we drove all the way to the Ardnamurchan Peninsula and spent a good time with Carl Crafts at Ardnamurchan and
Top man.
wandered around the warehouse and just tasted some delights, some wonderful treats. That was really a highlight of the tour. Then we took the
I'm
ferry.
trusting that my bribe to Carl was enough that you guys didn't touch my cask, because I'd like there still to be some liquid in it when I get to it next.
We didn't say we didn't touch your cask.
Oh no. Oh, Carl.
Who said we didn't touch your cask?
Well, I was hoping that it would be safely hidden, and I realized it's got my name and a sticker on it that clearly denotes it's our cask. Oh no, is it going to be empty when we next go?
Yeah.
That's why you had to
the one
exit
with the
quickly.
little horse on it, right?
It did have Sven on it. It does have Sven on it. Shit. Should have put disguise on him.
Then we took the ferry to Tobermory. This is my first time on the Isle of Mull, this is my first time in Orkney, my first time on Mull, which was very cool. So got to visit that distillery, and I've fallen in love with Tobermory spirit. I was never in love with Tobermory spirit. It was always Lechig. I am now head over heels in love with Tobermory. I finally understand unpeated Tobermory spirit. I now get it.
But you and Jason were already into it with the ROW release of the Tobermory.
That was the first time. That was the first time I tasted Tobermory and said, wait a second, this is actually good. For my palate. Sorry.
You two were giddy about that bottle. I've never seen the pair of you so animated about a whiskey.
Yeah.
So I kept making people drink it. I was like, these two love this.
Yeah. Because it was gorgeous. I needed that aha moment. And I think it was through that cask that gave me the aha moment. I just needed the foot in the door for me to just, I needed the context. And now that I had the context, and the woman who took us through did such a wonderful job of telling us how the spirit is made, why it's made the way it was. They take these really enormous cuts. They have these really strange line arms that take these unusual 90-degree turns because of the way the roof is made. They just don't have the space for the line arms. And because they take these 90-degree turns, they have these cuts that are between 74 ABV and like 58% ABV. The really, really wide cut, but only because of the way the line arms are. And I thought that was interesting. Originally, I thought they did that because they wanted this heavier style of spirit. And it was just out of necessity. It was just because of the way the building was shaped. And I thought that was so cool. And like all these little contextual clues helped me to better understand the spirit. And this is why we go on these tours, right? It just helps you to better understand what they do, why they do, how they do it. And yeah, I really loved that tour quite a lot.
Okay, so now there's going to be loads of single cask nation Tobermory cask picks. I see.
You see it? So, and then finally-ish, we went down to Isla, spent 3 days on Isla, and where did we go? We went to all the places. We went to Kilhoman, did my first tour at Bunahaben, which was lovely. We met with Andrew Brown, who's like, if you want a geeky tour of a distillery, no one's going to give you a geekier tour than Andrew Brown will. We went to Ardbeg and met with Colin, who just recently left Ardbeg as distillery manager, and I think it may be our fault that he left
No coincidence
Ardbeg.
there, right? Oh, I also meant to tell you, I met, also, if we have Canadian listeners, they would probably know Bry of like
Bryce
Ardbeg
Simpson.
Glenmorangie.
Yeah.
He's also in Glasgow currently. And after I heard the news that Colin had left, I said, why did you not tell me when we met in the pub the other night that you were here to take up position as distillery manager? He's not, that I know of. But, you know, all very coincidental. So it's either you guys have driven him out or I have uncovered the next distillery manager. You heard it here
Bryce
first
Simpson.
on this podcast.
Bryce Simpson would do a great job as distillery manager. I don't know how good his management skills are from a distillery management perspective, but from the perspective of being an on the road person, charismatic, can be in front of people, and like Bry is fantastic. So I think he could do that end of it. So Ardbeg, if you're listening, if you need a new distillery manager to be the face,
Start in house.
Yeah, start in house. Bryce Simpson can be your person.
I'm sure he could go to night college for distillery managers or whatever to brush up on whatever skills he's missing. I'm sure that's a course available to those in the know, right? Online, it's a distance course. You can do it online from Canada.
Of course, right? You just zoom it in.
So you guys caused mischief in Ardbeg, and then did you have to leave the island quickly before anyone else had to leave their jobs?
Yeah, well, Jackie had heard that we were coming, and she had left before we even got to the island, right? And then Colin was like, "Nah, these guys can't be too bad." And now he saw how bad we were, and so he fucked off, and he's left Ardbeg. You know how we ended the tour? We ended with a tasting by you and Christopher Sweet Scott Elstrom, which was brilliant. This is the first time I think this is the first time I've done a tasting with you and Chris, and I just sat back and enjoyed a tasting. Is that not true?
It's your first indoor tasting with me and Chris, but do you not remember we did a tasting on top of the O?
Yeah, we did a tasting on top of the O, which by the way, I took the guys on top of the O at the American Monument. We didn't do a tasting like you did, but we just did that just to be there. But you're right. We did do a tasting at the O, but this is the first time where it was just sitting down, relaxing.
Indoors with more than one glass, should you require more than one glass. Yeah,
but
we also had guest appearances.
The whiskey.
Yeah, we had guest appearances too, which was a surprise. We had David Stirk appeared. Nothing like an extremely well-versed and experienced person in the industry to turn up and put the fear of God in you when you do a tasting.
Whiskey royalty, basically.
Whiskey royalty. I didn't want to call him that, but you're right. Whiskey royalty. I wasn't sure whether or not he'd be okay with that as a title. Internationally known author and whiskey expert. How about that?
Sure, that's true.
We also had the lovely Carl. He turned up. Carl Crafts of Ardnamurchan, who you didn't chase out of the industry, so thanks, because I'd be sad if he left.
I'd be very sad.
And then of the not whiskey world, we had a representative in the House of Johnston in the form of Murray. So there you go.
Yes, that was lovely. If you can't get a Jason,
call his brother.
You get a Murray. You know what? Get a Murray. Sometimes you need a Murray.
That sounds like you're making some sort of secret announcement for the podcast. Jason will return. Don't worry. We're not recruiting Murray to do podcast stuff that I know of. Anything's possible with you guys. You like to hide things in this podcast. Yeah, it was great seeing you guys were all on way too good form for people that had been in a very small van driving around Scotland at speed. You were all far too excitable. I thought we were going to have to shake you all awake. No, you guys were good to go.
Yep. I kept them in line.
Down.
For the most part.
Yeah.
For the most part.
I thought the night was going to end up with us all in the Blue Lagoon getting some sort of pizza crunch, but it didn't. And I am very glad because we had got off a plane 2 days before that and I was still not quite mentally back in Scotland. So I was very glad. We had been in the Bonaccord the night before hosting a 60th birthday and retirement party for 40 people. So that week I felt like I lived in the Bon. I think we were back in by the end of the week too. So famous home from home, the Bonaccord. It's always lovely to see.
Indeed. Yep. It's always nice to what a lovely way to end a tour. And I like the way you said it, a home away from home. That is what I call the Bon Accord. So well, there you go. Well, there you go. A tight 35, Jess.
It's incredible how we manage that every time.
Every time. Every time.
You
So,
probably could make it 35 minutes if you listen to this podcast on like 2.5 times speed. If that helps.
don't sound like chipmunks.
Like turkeys in a field.
Well, listeners, viewers, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, you want to send them in, you can send them off to info@singlecastnation.com. If you enjoyed this podcast as a listenable, please go to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star rating. Leave a comment. If you leave a comment, we will read it here. 5 stars only. Oh, does this do anything? No, it doesn't do anything. Leave us a 5-star rating and leave a comment. If we see the comment, we will read it on here. I think you could also leave a 5-star rating on Spotify. In fact, I know you can. If you enjoy this on the YouTubes, please subscribe. There's a little subscribe button down below, and there's a little bell down below. You could just tick that bell, and you'll be reminded when a new episode arrives. And tell your friends, tell your loved ones, call up your gran, let her know that we do this podcast. It's me, it's Jess, it's Jason, it's guests. Come on. And I guess until next time, we have a very special episode coming up this Wednesday, Jess. It's one that I don't want to say specifically what it is, but it's something that we've been talking about, been teasing for some time. And just that's all I'll say.
God, that's 2 bombshells in one very quick podcast. A complete Joshua Hatton list and the thing everybody's been maybe possibly asking about may or may not be about to arrive in your devices.
It may or may not be, but I think it may be.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
What are we going to wind them up about then?
I don't know. What if it doesn't happen?
Okay, well, on that bombshell, until next time. Thanks for having me.
Until next time. Here, I'm gonna toast with 2 empty glasses. Cheers.
Oof, bad form.
In bad form. Cheers. Oh, that just doesn't sound good.
No, it was like a
Clank.
Yeah.
Bye.